When speaking about anxiety, I find the car alarm analogy really helpful. A car alarm, when it works, is really helpful. It tells us when there's danger and it alerts us if someone is breaking in. Quite like anxiety, anxiety really helps us to tell us when there is danger. But poor anxiety, when anxiety is working on an overdrive, it's kind of like when a car alarm broken. It alerts you of danger when there is no danger and it keeps going off and keeps going off. Much like with anxiety, when it's working on overdrive, it can keep going off even when it's not meant to, and even when there's not danger involved. This world we've lived in for the past few years, where there's been loads of triggers all the time. We live in an incredibly anxiety-inducing world. Like if you think of the past few years, we have had COVID. There's been a death count on our phones for 2 years. We've had a war in Europe where we've seen it through TikTok live streams and not through newspaper articles. We've had the cost of living going up. And all of this stuff, and we start to realise that maybe right now we live in an anxiety-inducing world. How have you found it the past few years with all these anxiety-inducing things going on? How have you found coping with your anxiety levels?
That's real. Yeah, it's very real. I think I've been getting better at coping with my anxiety. I think when I was a lot younger, like just before the pandemic, I think my anxiety levels were all through the roof, and like I didn't know how to control them or cope with it. But I think now I've learnt that you can't bottle things in. When you feel what you feel, you have to speak to people about it. And not only just speaking to people, but speaking to people that you trust and speaking to people that have gone through similar things to you that can give you counsel from a place of lived experience. Because sometimes, I don't know if you guys have ever gone through something and you've tried to like maybe tell a teacher or something, like yeah, they might have the best intentions, but they're not close to you, like they can't relate to you in that way. So yeah, having a good group of friends or like family members that I can go to has really helped me.
No, I liked what Xenia said about how you can't cap it, you can't bottle it up, you've got to let it go, and there has to be a release, and how important it is to find that kind of thing. And I know for me, over the past couple of years, you know, there's so many external factors. What you said a second, death counts on your phone, like that enough utterly stress us all out. But you know, when you're young, you've also got social media stuff, we've got exams, there's just so much that can be on our plate and so much uncertainty in life. For me, one of the releases I found was, especially in lockdown, I'd just sit down at a piano and start kind of pouring myself into something and pouring out.
We release those stresses. There's this activity called the stress bucket. So if you think of all our stresses are in a bucket, as you can tell, I'm not an artist. So this is our bucket, and we have stuff going into this bucket every day, all types of stresses. Like you said, we have exams, we have COVID, we have friendship groups. We have so many things that will add to our stresses each day. Some of them very small, some of them massive, like COVID. And this bucket starts to slowly fill up. So what we need to learn is learn how to drain the bucket. Like, have you ever lashed out at someone when they've done something very silly or it's not like a big deal, but you proper lashed out. And you're like, why did I do that? The reason is because you've got all this built up stress, and then just one thing has allowed it to overflow. So in this bucket, we have a tap, yeah? And we need to this tap helps us drain the water, helps us drain the stresses. And how you do that is you work out what things reduce my stress levels. So for me, a coffee shop and a good book does wonders to my soul. And that reduces my stress levels. For you, it'd be music. Music reduces your stress levels. For Kane, it would be the gym.
Yes, Kane.
He's absolute gym lad. But things reduce our stress levels, yeah? So we need to work out what things reduce our stress levels. But there's also another tap. But this one is unhealthy things. Because we do things what we think are reducing our stress levels, but actually they're just adding to it. For example, TikTok. You might come home from school and and it's like, I just need to sit on the sofa and watch TikTok. And it gets to 6 p.m, you've been there for 2.5 hours, and you think in the moment this is helping you, but you finish it and you're still at the same stress level. So you have unhealthy ways of expressing, of trying to reduce stress, and healthy ways. So this activity, what we're going to do now is work out what things increase your stress levels, what things help reduce your stress levels, And maybe what things do you do what are unhealthy?
So smooth.
VM11.
Get the taps.
Absolutely. Quite a big waste.
Yeah, it was really interesting actually. I think a lot of just self-analysis went into this year. What about you, Jesse?
It's quite interesting because it's a self-analysis, but that's the problem.
Sure.
It's like that's
Yeah.
what's going on in my brain all the time anyway.
Yeah.
Self-criticism.
Why don't you share one thing what you do what's healthy stress reducer, and one thing that you do what is an unhealthy stress increaser?
A healthy one is, well, for me, as I said, playing music, but I also enjoy going on like a run or going to the gym and just like letting it all out.
Yeah.
And just like, I'm a bit of an external processor, and sometimes just talking it through with someone is super helpful. And but so I definitely have my fair share of unhealthy releases.
Sure.
Often when I'm overthinking and my mind's going about, I often bite my nails just as a response, which isn't particularly healthy, and it's just a way that for me to process what's going on internally.
So when I was just looking at this, and as you were talking, Jesse, I know you said about you're somebody that internalizes and sorts stuff out, outwardly. And I think for myself, I do that inwardly. When my bucket is filled up with anxiety, was something that kind of releases that. And for me, it's going to the gym. Recently, when I started going to the gym, I realized that as I'm gymming and I'm doing the weights on the treadmill, it actually gives me time to actually have my thought processes going on in my head and actually think about the stuff that I'm doing in my life, and this helps me basically. Two birds in one stone. I'm doing the weights. I'm getting that. I'm getting that dopamine. I'm getting that dopamine. But then also I'm actually thinking about my stuff as well, which is really good. I think one of the stuff on the other side, which is not so good, is that I spend a lot.
Sure.
So my spending. So like when I have anxiety, for me it's like I want to fill that kind of like void with like spending on new clothes or
100%.
Go look on ASOS for new trainers or whatever that could be, or meet up with a friend and then go Primark and buy certain clothes, which I don't really need, but I'm doing that as a form of escape or as a form of running away from my true problems, basically, instead of facing it head on.
I think it's interesting that we all have touched on like ways of escaping, and I was gonna highlight that as an unhealthy thing, even though I know it's a healthy thing as well. So like for me, one of the things that I do is I like to write, but I like to write in so many different forms. So I'll write songs, I'll write poetry, I'll write lyrics. For me, it's like a way of taking what I'm going through and trying to make fun out of it, or like make it in a creative way where it can kind of take the light away from it a bit. But also doing too much escapism can actually be unhealthy, because instead of fighting your problems, you can overcompensate by running away. You have to find the moments of, okay, when do I take a step back, and when do I actually just take some time for myself?
Yeah.
And then when do I find strategies to actually deal with the things that I'm going through?
Sure, definitely. Well, guys, the point of this is for you guys to take this away and start to put into your life the things what reduce your stress levels. So for you need to prioritise the gym. You need to prioritise...
Yeah, you do.
Get down and give me time.
You need to prioritise playing music, and you need to put in more time to be able to write stuff. It's putting things in place to enable you to keep lowering that stress bucket so you don't get to that place where it overflows. I know for me, one of the main things what really helps reduce my stress levels is time with God. I can see a massive difference in my whole well-being when I've spent time with God, when I haven't spent time with God. I know for me, when I'm out of my rhythms and out of my Bible time and praying, it's really hard and I really struggle with life. So it's definitely important for us as we think about this. Where is God in this journey? Is it community, is it Christian communities? Are those sort of things that reduce our stress levels? And if so, let's make sure we prioritise that.